I do have very high expectations for students. If you are in a class with me, like an animation or a graphic design class, I expect that the products that you produce or the projects that you produce will be of a very high level. Now, you have all of the same software that the professionals use. The only thing that separates you from the professional right now is the experience. But if you want to get there, you've got to put in a ton of time and make your projects look as good as theirs. Otherwise, you're not going to get noticed. So college is that time when you hypothetically have all the time in the world, and that's why you hear about the infamous all-nighters that a student might pull to get a project done correctly. So now is the time that you make it hurt a little bit as far as the effort that you put in. Just don't actually hurt yourself physically, mentally, of course. But put that extreme effort into these projects so that you get noticed. Now, I hand out or make available on the website either a project handout or what I call a grade sheet or a rubric. And this will all, of course, be laid out for you in the announcements, what's available for you. But I expect that you will use those as a checklist before you turn in the projects, because literally that's exactly what I do when I grade your project. I have something in writing in front of me, and sometimes they may literally have questions on them that I ask myself as I'm grading the project. So there's no reason for you not to look at that in advance and just check, I did this, check, I did that, check, I did that. An example of one of these grade sheets so you can get an idea here what I'm talking about. Now, you may not have this project in the particular class that you're teaching with me, but here's an example from one of my SCC classes for a project called Magazine Cover Texture. And by the way, while I'm showing you this, let me let you know something. If you just click inside of Files, it will open up the file right here inside of Canvas. This is a horrible area to print from. So instead, you should download it if you need to print this out. And the difference is you just go over to these little dots here and you select download. Okay, so here is an example of a grade sheet. We'll have a brief description of the project, which I will go over either in person or via video or Zoom. But if it specifies that you have to use something, it will be right here on the grade sheet for you to copy and paste into your project. Probably give you the learning objectives, how to get started on the project. And then this is the thing that you should really spend time with if you're interested in getting a good grade in the class. So when I grade, I'm literally looking at these, answering them as I go, and the more I have to say, like, no, they didn't quite do good there, no, they didn't do good there, the more the grade goes down. Now I need to add a couple things here about online classes. First of all, these grade sheets may be an actual rubric built into the class. And let me just show you a quick example of what that might look like. An example from History of Graphic Design. So if you happen to have a rubric for a particular assignment, in either the announcement or module, whatever we're using for your class, which will be very clear to you for that class, you will see somewhere in there a link to the rubric. And then the rubric not only is available for you to look at before you do the work, but this is actually, in that particular assignment, how I would grade it. So it's broken down into different aspects of the project, or in this case, the paper, and then I enter the particular amount of points that you earned for it. The other thing that's kind of particular to online classes that I want to talk about is like an extension of online etiquette. So I talked about these things that I expect you not to do when we're in class. They also apply to when we're on a Zoom meeting. Now, let me first drop in one extra thing here. A big offender lately has been people watching videos during class. And I suppose this could apply to online as well. So please, the only videos that you should be watching if you're in class are the ones that pertain to the class. If you're just goofing around, wasting time, watching funny videos, it's actually really disruptive to the class because it draws everybody's attention. I even had it one semester where I was looking and kind of chuckling at what was going on and the students trying to get my attention. I realized, wow, this is really bad for the class. I will say this, sometimes I get students at the community colleges that were given an ultimatum by their parents, either get a job or go to school. So they take the obvious choice, they go to school, and they just sit there and they waste a whole bunch of time. If that happens to be you, please don't waste our time. You could hypothetically check in with me at the beginning of class, go to the library, put on your headphones, watch videos all day long, check in with me at the end of the class just so I don't drop you. Hopefully that doesn't apply to anyone here. So online, let's first talk about the additional etiquette. Most likely all of these statements are on your syllabus as well. But for any online meeting, screen recording is strictly prohibited. That's the same benefit that you give an instructor, that you don't record them in the classroom without explicit permission, because those things can show up on YouTube and be horrible. It's against the law, especially in the state of California, to record someone without their explicit permission. Students should enter meetings in mute mode. No chatting amongst yourself unless you are asking the teacher a question, or there's something going on that requires student interaction. Don't write on the screens if you have that ability, because everyone can see it. Please log into the meetings from a quiet, distraction-free environment. If you're going to show the background, because you can put a virtual background in any of these things, first of all, it will be obvious how to get at a Zoom meeting. I'll make that very clear in the announcement, how to log in, what you need to do. But anything that you want to know, like additional things, just Google it. Like, for example, how to add a virtual background in Zoom. And then that way you can put the Golden Gate Bridge behind you, and then we just see your face. You should enable your video so that we can all see each other just like we do in class. But, and I've heard horror stories about this, clothing is not optional. It's just like you're in the classroom. If for whatever reason you cannot share the video, then make sure you have an appropriate visual representation of yourself there. In other words, a photograph of you. But please, unless you have a very good reason, please be there with your smiling faces so that we can all interact with each other and make it as much like it's in a classroom environment as possible. Please don't walk around while you're at the meeting, or eat, or just do anything that is generally distracting. Treat it like it's a class. Come prepared with a pencil and paper or digital notepad to take notes of things that are going on. And same appropriate behavior for class should be exercised in these virtual environments. That brings us to another quiz question. When you enter an online meeting such as Zoom, please mute your audio. If you are called upon to speak or have a question, remember to turn your audio back on. All of this will be explained once we do our first Zoom meeting. I'll go over another important expectation item by answering our next question. Time management is important to the success of a college class. For each unit, and most classes are 3-unit classes, you should block out 3 hours for homework. Thus, a 3-unit class will have about blank hours of homework per week. And this is not including online class time. The interesting thing here is that's a college standard. When you're taking a studio class, it is even more intense than that, and I'll explain why. There's been studies that have shown that the 2 majors that spend the most time doing homework, not surprisingly pre-med, but the other one is creatives. animators, graphic designers. The reason being is that you need to make such an awesome portfolio in order to get a job that if you really want to get a job doing this, you'll be spending way more time than that on projects, especially as you're putting together things for your portfolio. Earlier, I said cheating your way through design or animation school was just ridiculous. And that's why. It's the portfolio that matters. So if you go to someone with a degree and say, look, I'm a graphic designer, and they say, all right, let's see your work, and the work is horrible, you're not going to get the job. If you, let's say you're such a cheater that you steal someone else's portfolio, maybe you get the job, but within days, maybe hours, could be weeks, you're going to get fired because you are not producing the level of work that's expected. Let me go over the absence drop policy. You do need to attend the first day of class. If it's an online class, that's usually accomplished by completing the first assignment. Now, let me just say this item keeps getting like a little bit more complicated, and I'll just briefly tell you it has to do with the fact that state colleges and community colleges are funded with government money. In other words, you're not paying the full amount of what it costs to hire the instructors and the buildings and take care of all that stuff. So they don't want students to sign up for a class and then not attend because they're giving the college money for no reason technically. Now, with the change to a lot of online classes, there has been a push to drop students who aren't attending class even after the first day. So to avoid that happening with you, the easiest way is just stay active in the class. But if you're not turning stuff in the class and you plan on getting caught up and you don't want me to drop, shoot me an email, explain the situation. Let's say you're taking a community class just for the fun of it and you don't plan on doing any work. To avoid getting dropped where I can't see you if it's not a physical class, what you should do is still submit things online that are due. And if it's like, like a written thing or whatever, put a note in there, say, I don't plan on actually getting a passing grade in this class. And you're just reminding me, and then I have a paper trail or a digital trail that you're telling me not to drop you, that you're still engaged in the class. Now, on the other hand, if you do want to drop the class, it is not my responsibility to drop you. So you can't just say down the road, well, I stopped attending class and Steve said if that happened, he would drop me. I'm not saying that at all, because the further we are into the semester, the less likely I am to drop you for not showing. So never use that as your plan. If you decide that you are no longer going to take the class, log into the college's system, the same system that you used to sign up for the class in the first place, and drop the class, because otherwise you could end up with an F on your records, which can be hard to get rid of. You may want to pay attention to the same place where you signed up for the class on the website to important dates, such as when is the last day that you can drop the class and get a refund, which is obviously very early on. Change to a pass, no pass grade, the last day to drop with a W, which is a withdrawal, and so on. I'm going to scroll past the grading section so that I can keep the grading information on a video all by itself. Absolutely no work is accepted after the final class meeting. If your class involves production of artwork, make sure you make arrangements to get that picked up by the end of the semester. As I'm adjunct at 3 different colleges, it's very hard to get the work to students after the semester is over, especially if I'm not back at that college again. Communication is very important to this class. Make sure you check your emails often, and the announcements in Canvas, check them often. The biggest thing is sometimes in class or on Zoom, I may forget to say something, and then I realize, I need to let everyone know this, and I will email you that information. So our next video will be dedicated to grades and grading.